everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today I am doing a video with these oil pastels. Now I have actually previously used these in a video, but of course I kind of like to reuse art supplies because, well, why have them there and not use them? So today I am using these Montmartre brand oil pastels. Now I wanted to use them on black paper. I don't think I've seen anyone try that before. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think it's probably a thing people do. But anyways, I got the idea to do this because I recently have done colored pencils on black paper, and I have done gold ink on black paper. And yeah, oil pastels were definitely on the list for me to try out. So when I'm trying out a new medium, or if I'm trying out an older medium in a different way, I usually like to swatch them. Now this is mainly because I wanted to test out how the oil pastels would look on the black paper, and also I wanted to test out how they would work together and see if I could get some nice opaque colors or if I would have to layer it more. Also, so I could have a reference for my artwork later, so that I could see which colors looked, how they looked on the paper, so that I could, you know, pick ones that looked really nice. So after I swatched them out, I did a few test gradients here with some blues and some yellows to oranges and some greys, and yeah, I also tested out my workable fixative on this to see if I could layer up the oil pastels with different colors, and it seemed to work out alright. Obviously I couldn't layer up too much, but it did give me a little bit of a way that I could add just a little bit more color. So here is the swatch test paper, and I'm quite happy with how these colors look. Some of them do look a little bit odd, especially the yellows. But you know, this is a sort of a testing type of video, so I'm pretty happy with how these turned out, and I can't wait to show you what I'm actually drawing today. So to start off, I'm actually doing a few artworks in this video, mainly because I wanted to test this out completely with lots of different colors and stuff like that. So the first artwork I'm doing is a sort of a sky image. Now all of these ones that I'm doing today are actually you know, sort of scenery type artworks, and I really love drawing these because they are absolutely a lot of fun, and I love like drawing trees and stuff, especially if they're like silhouetted behind the moon or the sun or just the bright sky. I really love that aesthetic, and I don't know, I just have a lot of fun when I draw things like this. Now I started off just drawing a couple of circles using a cup and a deodorant can because those are the only things that I had that were the right size, and then after that I did some very light layers of oil pastel to sort of add a base of colour on so that I could use that to work off of. Now to blend the oil pastels, I actually am using a bit of tissue here just so I could sort of add a light layer of the oil pastel and sort of smear it around and mix it to try and get some nice little block colors without it being too thick on the paper. And yeah, I used a lot of blues and purples for this one, and then I added a little bit of blue and a bit of white for the clouds as well, making sure that I blended those nice so that they looked quite airy and light. After that I added some blues around where the moon would be so that it would have a nice glow on it, and then I added the white on the moon, and that really made it sort of pop brightly against the black paper, and I'm quite happy with how that turned out. Now for the ground, I'm obviously using a mix of some greens and some black as well, and I tried to make sure that it had a bit of rim lighting because the moon would cast a bit of a bright light onto it. After I did all of that, I tried to make it nice and sort of a bit of variance in the sky a little bit. I added a lot of shadows and highlights, and yeah, then I added a layer of my workable fixative, which does add a slight shine to it, I find, even though it's supposed to be a matte. Anyways, and then I went over the top of that with some black, which I actually used my X-Acto knife to sort of sharpen so that I could get a sort of a thin line. And then yeah, I just added a nice little tree in front of the moon, and then after that I used a bit of black and a bit of green and a tiny bit of yellow to add the leaves on the tree. Now other than that, a few little details here and there, and then I used my gel pen for some stars in the sky, and that really finished it off and made it look very nice, and I'm quite happy with how this one turned out. So here's the final result, and I absolutely love it. So the next artwork that I'm doing today, I actually really wanted to test the vibrancy and the opacity of these oil pastels on the black paper. So I decided I wanted to try and do a daytime scene of a very similar look to the last one. Now instead of the moon, we obviously have the sun, and then I tried to get a nice bit of a gradient as well, where it's the blue sky is sort of lighter up near the sun, and then it goes a little bit more darker once it gets to the horizon. After that, I added some white lines coming from the sun so that I could sort of get that look of sun rays coming down. I didn't get it perfectly, and I ended up having to sort of go over it and fix it a little bit, but that's okay because it turned out good in the end. Now for the sun, I originally put down yellow, but I found that was far too dark and saturated, so I sort of blended it off so that it was just a very light layer of yellow, and then I sprayed a lot of workable fixative over the top and let that dry. Once I let that dry, I was able to layer on some more white onto the sun, and I find that this actually helped a lot, and it made it look a little bit more realistic. After that, I added a few more layers on the sky so that I could get it nice and opaque and bright, because I didn't want to just have one layer of oil pastels, because you could sort of see through a little bit, and I wanted it to be as bright as I could get it. But yeah, I'm pretty happy with how this sky is turning out right now. After I got all of that done, I decided I wanted to add some nice clouds to this image. Now I decided against white clouds because we already have that really bright white sun, and I wanted a bit more contrast than that, so I added some nice dark blue with a little bit of black and a little bit of purple mixed through, and these actually turned out some really nice dark sort of clouds. And yeah, I'm quite happy with the contrast and how they look. Now it's time to add the tree onto this artwork, because that's what I'm drawing today, and I used a bit of black and a bit of brown as well. I didn't want it as dark as the first one because this is a sort of daytime scene. However, I still wanted it a bit dark so that it looked almost like a silhouette. But yeah, after I added that brown and then I added some sort of green leafage onto the tree, I actually went over the top and added those sun rays so that it was sort of shining through. And I'm actually quite happy with how this one and how it turned out. The colors are nice and vibrant, and yeah, I'm quite pleased. Now for this one, I wanted to test out more colors. Previously I had a lot of blues and purples in the mix, so I actually wanted to mix it up and add some sort of warm colors to this one. So I actually decided I wanted to do a bit of a sunset image, because we have a sort of sunny day and then we have a sort of dark moony night, and yeah, sunset would be a really good sort of mix of the two. So of course I added a gradient of some oranges and some sort of reds, and then after that I went through and added a little bit of purple up the top, because I love adding a bit of purple into my sunsets. I think the colors clash really nicely, and yeah, it's pretty good. After I got that gradient how I wanted it, I added some yellow and some white to the sun. Now of course this sun is able to be a lot more yellow than the last one, but I still wanted to make sure I didn't make it too crazily yellow, so I added a bit of white in the middle as well to sort of give it that sort of bright glow. And after that I added some greens and some blues and some blacks to the grass below. Now I knew I was going to have this very dark sort of grass color, especially since the sun is right behind that hill, so it's going to silhouette it quite strongly. But I still tried to make sure I had some light greens on the blades of grass, because they would sort of get a little bit of that highlighted. as well. After that, I wanted to add some clouds because, well, I had clouds in the other videos, the other artworks, so I definitely wanted to have clouds in this one too, and it's just a nice bit of detail. So I actually decided again with some dark clouds, but I tried to make sure that I had a little bit of a yellow highlight below from the sun, and yeah. Now to draw the trees, and I actually decided 2 trees for this one, just a little bit of variance. I didn't want them all to be just a tree, so I added 2 in this one, and yeah, I'm actually quite happy with how this one turned out. It's not my favorite out of the ones that I made today, however I still like it. I think it's pretty good. I especially like that I added a few stars up the top of the image and not all over the image. Just that tiny little detail I think adds so much to it. Now for this one, I wanted to have a little bit of fun, and I wasn't exactly sure what to draw at first, but then I got the idea to draw an aurora in the sky. Yep, an aurora borealis, and that's because, I don't know, I felt like I had a daytime, a nighttime, sunset. I wanted to try and pick another sort of phenomenon to do with the sky, and yeah, this was the first one that I thought of, and I just didn't want to pass it up. So of course I started off with the ground with this one because yeah, I just felt like that's what I should start with, and then I went in with a bit of blue at the bottom to sort of start off the sky. Now to draw the aurora, I just added some squiggly lines with some green and some purple, and then I sort of just added some vertical, god damn it Sarah, I had it in my mind, vertical lines going up and down from the squiggly lines, and then I sort of just blended those out, and I added some little variations in color just to make it a bit more interesting. So the green one has a bit of blue and a bit of yellow in it, and the purple one has a bit of pink and some blue in it as well, just to add some little highlights and shadows here and there. And yeah, once I got those nice and blended, I added some blues and some blacks to the sky, and I tried to make sure it wasn't too dark. I definitely wanted to have some sort of like hint to a cloud in there, but I still wanted the aurora to be the main focus of the artwork. I did have to sort of layer this one up a lot, mainly because I really wanted to push those highlights and get it really nice and vibrant, and that workable fixative that I used was very helpful in that. In these artworks, the workable fixative is pretty good. It does add a sort of gloss to the art, I find, but even though it's supposed to be matte. But I think that's maybe because I am layering too much, or I'm putting too thick of a coat, but it's not really that bad, especially when you look at it in the right sort of light. It's okay. So after I got the sky how I wanted it, I added some stars into the image, and that just sort of brought it all together and just gave it a nice sort of pop of a highlight. And I'm very happy with how the sky looks. I think this is probably one of my favorite ones in these artworks. So after I did that, I wanted to add some trees into this image too, but I actually decided not to add any leaves to these trees. I'm not sure why. I probably just thought that it was a nice bit of a variance, and then just for a little bit more detail, I added some sort of trees in the distance as well. Now here is how this one turned out, and I am so happy with it. I love these artworks. Now if you're interested, I will leave some links in the description to the art supplies that I used today, as well as some art supplies that I love to use myself. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you in my next one. Bye everyone!
Boy, do I have a message for you.